Good evening and welcome to Unapologetic, the UK podcast on politics, news and stuff from a right-of-centre viewpoint. And we've got a slightly different crowd in today. We've got some traditionals. We've got Sam, of course.
Hello.
We've got our elder statesman, Jonathan.
Good evening.
And we've got a newbie, Chris.
Good evening.
Now, we always said that we would never have Jonathan and Chris on at the same time because we got a feeling they might clash. But we'll soon find out. We'll soon find out because that's what we're doing tonight. We like to live dangerously. And our first item is this one. The UK government has formally rejected a call from Scotland's First Minister for a second independence referendum. Prime Minister Boris Johnson said a referendum would continue the political stagnation Scotland has seen for the past decade. And he said First Minister Nicola Sturgeon had previously pledged that the 2014 referendum will be a once-in-a-generation vote. Miss Sturgeon tweeted that the Tories were attempting to deny democracy. She said, not that old chestnut, she said Mr Johnson's formal refusal of a request for a referendum to be held later this year was predictable, but also unsustainable and self-defeating, and insisted that Scotland would have a right to choose. The First Minister also said that the Scottish Government would set out its response and next steps before the end of the month, and that the devolved Scottish Parliament would again be asked to back Scotland's right to choose our own future. So, what do you make of that, Sam?
I knew you were going to come to me first, because I wasn't really paying attention. I was looking at this box of Ploughman's condiments for biscuits and cheese.
Now, if you can hear wine pouring, that's because I'm about to start getting Jonathan sloshed, because he's always funnier when he's had a drink, we find. So, here you go, Jonathan, get
I wanted
started.
to mention the Ploughman's because I wanted to slip in the fact that I had some nice Wednesday Almond cranberry cheese yesterday.
Oh dear, look, back to the topic at hand. I'll tell you what, I'll go to Jonathan.
Actually, mentioning Wensleydale and cranberry cheese, they were reminding it at Waitrose and something like
So
30, I know.
Waitrose?
Yeah, well, we happen to be passing a Waitrose and at 30 pence a pack. I thought, yeah, we'll have some of this.
All right, I can see this is going to go well. It's going to go well tonight. I'm going to be really able to...
sitting there so angry thinking, what are we talking about Nicola Sturgeon?
Go on, Chris, tell us what you think of it.
Well,
Don't say anything about cheese. You're not allowed to.
I'd be perfectly happy not to talk about Nicola Sturgeon, to be honest. But I think that we're going to face some real difficulties as far as this is concerned in the next few years, and we need to be aware of it. The first thing I'd say is that at a time when we are still in the negotiations for how Brexit will turn out, it's entirely inappropriate to have another constitutional major question being put to the electorate in a referendum. It just confuses things too much. We need to see what the final settlement is between the United Kingdom and the rest of Europe before Scotland can even begin to consider what they want to do as far as their future is concerned. And it was meant to be once in a generation, but generations tend to be rather short in some parts of Scotland, I believe. So maybe thinking
You
about
can't
it,
say that.
maybe being 20 years might be pushing it a bit too far. But a point is being made about democratic right to have some determination on this issue, and maybe after we have had the settlement finished with Europe, maybe it would be appropriate to say that if the Scottish Nationalist Party were to manage to get more than 50% in a national election, maybe then that could trigger a further referendum, because ultimately people do have the right to choose.
You're so reasonable, Chris.
But not to keep on asking for referendum after referendum after referendum until they get the answer right. That can't be a correct way of doing it.
Well,
What is your
Jonathan,
favourite cheese? That's what I want to know.
Jonathan, I think you've been out-serious. You've been
Well,
out-serious.
how
How are you going to respond to this? It's like a gauntlet has been thrown down.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing here is that if you had a referendum, we'll just pass over that one as an issue, and we then move to after the referendum. And we've just experienced 3 years of after the referendum, but that was over a trade deal. This is actually about your citizenship and every aspect of your relationship with the government. So, for example, once you have declared that Scotland's going to be independent, who are Scottish? Those who are 50% English, 50% Scots, are they English or are they Scots? Who pays their pension? Is it the English who pay their pension, or is it the Scots who pay their pension? If you're an English person living in Scotland, do you get the pension off Scotland? Or
More
do
to
you
the
get...
point, though, Jonathan.
But, I mean,
Does anybody
that's
care?
just... Well, yes, they will do when they suddenly find that both nations are saying, no, you're one of them, we're not paying your pension.
Do you know what winds me up, right? This woman plugging on about how it's denying democracy, when just a couple of months ago she was trying to stop the Brexit vote by denying democracy. I mean, they're just hypocrites, and they throw the same stupid accusations at one another, don't they, Sam?
Yeah, they do. And I also want to know, what kind of cheese do they eat in Scotland? Someone's got to just line this podcast up, because...
No, there's loads of serious points about it. I mean, at the actual referendum, the area bordering Britain overwhelmingly voted to remain, or bordering England, overwhelmingly voted to remain part of the United Kingdom. So should they be compelled, once the vote has taken place, to be part of Scotland? Obviously, you would need to redraw the boundary of Scotland so that the bits who wanted to remain part of the United Kingdom...
No boundary talk. No boundary talk.
Rather more interesting than that,
Oh, no.
sorry, it's a boundary talk but a different sort.
Oh, no.
Rather more interesting than that is the fact that Shetland in particular
Shetland
voted extremely strongly against.
Yes.
Now, if Shetland were to be independent or to stay with the rest of the United Kingdom, then the territorial waters which Shetland would have would take in the vast majority of the oil.
The oil field.
I
Yes,
think,
that would
I think
remain
we
British
need
asset.
one of our unapologetic declarations here. Can I just have a vote on whether we support Shetland independence from Scotland or not? Chris?
If they want it.
Oh, so weak. Sam?
What do you want me to say?
That's it.
Because the truth is, I know it's an
Sam,
island.
this
I
isn't,
know they have ponies.
Sam, this isn't a council meeting.
What do you think, Jonathan?
Yes, by all means.
Free Shetland! I'm going to go and march with them.
Because I believe in democracy. So if the Shetland wants to remain part of the United Kingdom, that's what they should do.
And
The-
if
the
Nicola
reality-
Sturgeon doesn't let them, she's denying democracy.
And
The reality-
the slogan isn't Free Shetland, it's Up Hellier.
Yeah,
I don't know what that
the reality is that only two areas in the whole of Scotland, I think one was Dundee, and the rest was Glasgow, voted for independence. Now, there's no reason whatever to refuse Glasgow independence. It's got its own port. It can survive on its own. Fence around it with customs posts and give it independence.
But if we've got to keep some of Scotland, is that a bit we want to keep?
No.
Why don't we just keep... Why are we actually so
Glasgow's
wedded
fine.
to it? Why do we want to keep it so much?
Well, I'm just saying, give Glasgow
Well, we are
independence.
it is the Conservative
I know,
and
yeah, I
Unionist
know.
Party.
But I mean, are we just sort of attached to it because we don't? It's not, it's like when you're with a partner for a long time and you sort of want to end it, but you feel a bit too mean and attached to him. Like, is that like we are with Scotland?
No, we
think, we have to sort of stay with Scotland because we don't want to be mean and we don't want to hurt Scotland.
my view is, as long as they wanted to stay, we should let them stay. Frankly, if they'd have voted to leave, I would have been relaxed about it. It's up to them. But they didn't, and I do believe we're stronger together. So I don't think that's just a pop phrase that people use. I believe it. But we'll find out perhaps if one of these days soon. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on to agenda item 2. Labour leadership front runner Rebecca Long-Bailey was embroiled in a woman's rights row over abortion today after the leak of a letter to church leaders suggesting she is supporting tightening of the law. The Salford and Eccles MP said, "I personally do not agree with the law allowing terminations up to birth if a woman is carrying a disabled child and 24 weeks if they are not disabled," in a letter to Roman Catholic Church before December's election. But her campaign team have blasted the Red Raw website, which obtained the letter, saying it was selectively quoted by the fake news peddlers at the site. You know, so everyone uses that phrase now, fake news. That's one that Trump's really won. And they said the 40-year-old Catholic left-winger unequivocally supports a woman's right to choose and has only ever voted in favour of extending the right to abortion. So what do you make of that, Chris?
This is a reflection of the fact that within the northwest of England, a Labour Party, there is a surprisingly heavy Catholic bias. And it's not merely to be found in the Greater Manchester area, you can also find it in the Labour parties within Lancashire and also on Merseyside. So there is a quite different ethos as far as certain moral matters are concerned that you get from some of the Labour MPs in that area compared with the rest of the country. What is very interesting about this is the desperate need there appears to be from Rebecca Long-Bailey's backers to say that she's been totally misquoted and she doesn't believe any of this whatsoever, when it's perfectly obvious from what we see here that she does have a difference of opinion from the hardliners on the idea that you can have abortion up to a ridiculous limit.
Well, afterbirth, if you believe some American Democrats.
Okay, but what's really interesting is how they seem to be desperate to claw back on that, as though there is only one possible answer that can be given to stay within the orthodoxy of the Labour Party. And it's quite correct that there can be a variety of thoughts and opinions and ideas about what's appropriate about abortion. And if they feel it's so important just to stick to the Labour Party orthodoxy on this matter, it doesn't bode very well for having a variety of opinion within the Labour Party. And take it wider than that, it's really important for any political party that it has a breadth of opinion and a breadth of support behind it. It has to be a coalition of ideas in order to be broad enough to be able to get elected. And if they're going to insist on orthodoxy on all issues, they're going to continue to be a narrower and narrower sect, which is less and less electable. So
More
I'd
and more
like to-
Corbyn's shadow.
Yes.
What do you think, Sam?
Yeah, so I can understand why they're denying it, because they want to be very much like Corbyn, and they wanted her to win and be his clone. And if you just look at the polls now, they're saying that Keir Starmer's probably going to beat her, which is sad, because I think she'd actually be really helpful for the Conservative Party. So I'm sad about this in a number of ways. But I don't actually disagree with, if it's true what she said, I actually, on a personal level, don't disagree with her. I'm not a Roman Catholic, but I do seriously think that you can't, how can you just say, it's because a baby's disabled, when it's actually physically viable to survive, that you're just going to kill it? And it is, in my opinion, killing it. And, we wouldn't do that. If the baby, if you can do it up till birth, that's the craziest thing about it. So it could be 8 months and 2 weeks, and it's okay to abort it. But if it's 9 months, then it's not, because it's just suddenly been born. And I don't see how that's right. And, we can't be saying, by saying that, you're saying that disabled people have less value. And that's completely wrong and abhorrent, in my opinion.
I saw a news article this week about a guy who's suing his parents in America for giving birth to him without his consent. Now that's stupid, right? But if you've been aborted, you never get the chance to choose, do you? What do you think, Jonathan?
Well, that's an argument maybe for
I'm
it,
beginning
then.
to think. I'm beginning to think the Democrats might have a thing here about the sort of post birth abortion, and I mean, if you took that to its logical extreme, you'd go down the route of up to the age of 18 you can abort your child, and there is a lot to be said for that. in as much as it would certainly change the attitude of a lot of teenagers to their parents.
Tidy your room. No. Tidy your room. Okay.
Exactly. If they knew that all you got to do
You're
was
very much
sign the
you're
form
very much
that-
a cupboard under the stairs parent, aren't you? Clearly.
Coming up the stairs, a luxury. Yeah.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because this particular issue always divides people, and it always is a hot topic, and people get very fiery about it. But the point here isn't so much the issue itself; it's the fact that Labour have boxed themselves in again, and that's the point I think Chris was making.
Well, the funniest thing about it is none of you three can actually even speak about it if you believe the left, because it's not your body and not your choice. So your views don't matter apparently.
So, what's your view then, Sam?
I've just given you my view.
I wasn't listening.
But which I don't. I think that's silly anyway. It's not something I agree with. I was just making the point that that's what they would say.
Okay.
So you just don't even say anything because your voices don't matter apparently.
Okay, well, heavy stuff, but let's move on to agenda item 3. EU citizens will not automatically be deported if they fail to sign up to the settled status scheme by 2021 deadline, Downing Street has said. The confirmation comes after the European Parliament Brexit coordinator Guy Verhofstadt, am I saying that right, Chris?
Yes.
Said he had been given the you don't like him, do you? Said he had been given the assurance by the UK government. Under the settlement scheme, EU citizens living in the UK can apply to stay in the country after Brexit. So far, the number of applicants to the scheme has hit more than 2.7 million. Nearly 2.5 million EU citizens have been told they can live and work in the UK after Brexit, while only 6, but that's some, serious or persistent criminals have had their applications rejected. Jonathan, what do you think?
It's interesting, this figure of 2.7 million, because some sources put it at 3.2 million, but it seems a variance of 500,000. Okay, who cares? I don't think this was ever on the cards to start with, really, the idea that, if you haven't signed up for a scheme, you're going to be deported. And the other thing is that, although arguably roughly 3 million have signed up, for it, there's almost certainly a lot more out there who weren't even aware of the scheme, let alone signed up for it. So it's
But do you think
it
it's
would
good,
leave a lot of
broadly a
people-
good approach, though, do you think?
I've no great problem with it, no.
I mean, I know a lot of Eastern European people who are a bit worried. I think it's quite a nice. It gives them a bit of to not worry. It gives them a bit of what's the word? Reassurance, comfort. Yes.
No, but does it though? He said they won't necessarily automatically be.
Well, we've got to
very
always
careful
we've
in
got to
this
always
work.
reserve the right to remove people if we have to, haven't we? I mean, what do you think, Chris?
I think that this particular debate is not really what Guy Verhofstadt was all about. I think that really all of this is to do with the positioning for the negotiations taking place over the course of the next 11 months about what the first stage, at least, of the trade relationship is going to be between the UK and the European Union. This particular issue is a bit of a red herring. It never was the intention that we would be throwing out every single person who hadn't signed up on by the relevant date. It had never been suggested that that would happen. What is very interesting, however, is that we've yet to get as much reassurance from certain European Union countries that they will treat UK citizens as well as we are proposing to treat those citizens who aren't UK citizens.
Yeah.
So I think that is something which really needs to be emphasised. But basically, this should be looked at in the context of what's going to be happening over the course of the whole of the next 11 months, which is the public side of the debate which will be carrying on and the negotiations carrying on about the way in which our trade position will be negotiated and will exist from the 31st of December this year.
Yeah, now I know you're going to like this one, Sam, because this was one that you were worried about, wasn't it? You've got a number of Eastern European friends and you were a bit worried that something different might happen. So what do you make of it?
I'm reserving judgment on it.
One thing it does do
Because
is to
it's not-
emphasise how important it is to get the message out to people that they do need to fill in the necessary form online and to register. And the more publicity that there can be given to that, the better.
Yeah, and they should do that,
especially
yeah.
important for us here in Finland. We do have a lot of individuals who are citizens of EU countries. We need to get that message out.
And it's
as
quite an
much as
easy
we can.
application as well. People can do it online. It takes about 15 minutes, and it's quite an easy application process.
The other odd one with this is that most of these people are readily identifiable, in as much as it would cost money, but the government could send them individual letters because they're identified on the electoral register as being citizens of the EU.
necessarily.
Yeah, they are. They
No,
have a
not
little,
only if they're registered to vote.
Yes, and
True,
they,
yeah.
they do
Every
have
time there's an election, we find another big load, don't we?
Yeah.
So
Exactly. Only a proportion have actually registered to vote. Some with a G and some with a K on the register, being technical about it, depending upon where they choose to vote.
but it
for
certainly
the European
wouldn't do
elections.
any harm to send out a letter to all the G and K voters to inform them that they do need to.
Yeah, but I think that'd be a bit of a waste of time and money, because if you're savvy enough to get registered to vote, you're going to be the sort of person that fills in the settled status form.
But I think you're being a bit too cynical about this, Sam, because some of the Eastern Europeans that we know were actually worried they might be thrown out after Brexit, straight after, weren't they? And that concern was allayed, and then they knew they had up to this deadline, and now they've been told, even at this deadline, there's no automatic expulsion.
Yeah, but I
That's
think-
got to be good news for them, hasn't it?
Well, I suppose, but I think there's still a massive element of mistrust, and quite a few of people I know are now actually going to try and apply for actual citizenship rather than just relying on settled status.
Well, welcome to it.
Excellent. That's really good news. But it doesn't help when you've got individuals who happen to be county councillors on Cambridgeshire County Council putting out tweets stating that now that Boris Johnson has managed to get election, watch out if you're a foreigner because you're going to be thrown out of the country. And that doesn't really help. Not that I'm naming the person's name, but she knows who she is.
These lefties are always like that, aren't they, though? They're always coming out with the scaremongering and the fearing, and they're trying to divide people in order to try and score some cynical votes. But we know that, and we don't play that game. Anyway, moving on to agenda item 4. Now, this one, a little less serious than the others, and this is Sam that spotted this and thought it would be interesting to talk about. So, apparently Morrison's is selling a limited edition potted pineapple plant, which is said to keep snoring at bay. It's available in the store this weekend. Other supermarkets are available.
I actually don't think they are. I think
Oh.
it actually is Morrison specific.
Available. Oh, right. Okay, so other supermarkets are available, but not to buy this particular plant. According to research by NASA scientists, sleeping beside these potted shrubs can help keep noisy sleepers quiet as they produce oxygen and improve air quality. Like most plants, pineapple plants need carbon dioxide to grow, but they have no use at all for oxygen, which is created as a waste product of plant growth. So they store any carbon dioxide they breathe in, removing it from the air, and release pure, filtered oxygen back into the room for us to breathe. Often specialised plant species will filter out other nasties, gases and toxins which are useful to them but harmful to us. Now this sounds like one of those nice puff pieces, but do you have a problem with snoring, Sam?
Well, what do you mean? Me personally? As in, do I snore?
Well, any sort of problem with snoring, whether it's one of your own or one of someone else's making.
Well, I don't sleep with anyone because I live at home on my own, so I don't hear anyone snoring. I'm told I snore, but obviously I don't hear that either because I'm asleep, so no, I don't really have a problem with snoring.
Okay,
I think I am probably quite a loud snorer.
no snoring
The
issue.
occasional time woken up with a sore throat from a big snore, so I think I'm probably a bit of a snorer.
So pineapple plant by the bed for you.
Well, who's it going to wake up in my empty house?
Yeah, but you
The
might
cat?
not have that sore throat you were talking about.
I can live with the snoring.
What do you think, Chris? Do you have a snoring problem, Chris?
I've rarely, only when I have to listen to stories like this one. I've rarely heard a story supposedly by unnamed NASA scientists, which is always a bad start.
It's Ed and Bob.
Stating that one particular plant somehow manages to produce oxygen in a way very different from the way in which all other plants work. It doesn't make any great deal of sense to me. All I'd heard before you read out the detail, as much of it as I stayed awake for, was that that this pineapple plant was going to in some way stop snoring. And my only thoughts were, well, how would it happen? Are you meant to stuff the pineapple down a snorer's throat? Are you meant to tie the pineapple plant around someone's neck to stop them? I didn't understand how it was going to happen. But I think my two ideas are better than the one which you actually read out.
Yeah, well, I mean, when Chris is calling something boring, right, that's a real burn. Jonathan, come on, give me something. Do you have a problem with snoring?
Yes, because we've 2 dogs, and the biggest one of those snores.
Ah,
And,
pineapple plants to stop the dog snoring.
No, it's just easier if you hit him with a rolled up newspaper, but
But that just wakes him up. Then he goes back to sleep and snores again.
yeah, but by then you've probably gone to sleep, so that's fine.
Okay, right.
Would you advocate the rolled up newspaper for people as well?
It does work.
You've tried it?
I've tried it, yes.
And do they have to be snoring, or do you just
No,
any
just do it
people?
anyway.
It doesn't work. Like it's saying if someone's a snorer, they can't help snoring. Say to them, "Please stop snoring." Doesn't make them stop snoring. It makes them feel very sad and
No,
self-conscious about this.
but hitting them with a rolled up newspaper does stop them snoring.
Yeah, briefly, I suppose, until they fall back to sleep and snore some more.
Well, I'm
In a
told
mood review.
I am told it does work because other people did it on me when I used to go away with the army. So.
Well, I'm reliably told that the cure for snoring is to hold the nose and the mouth shut. But I think you then die. So probably cures one thing, but creates a secondary problem there.
Yeah, I mean the other solution to getting more oxygen into your bedroom is open the blooming windows.
I always sleep with my window.
Well, is that more oxygen or just more air? Because I don't think opening the window specifically lets oxygen in, but keeps the other gases out.
Well, it does because which is why you sort of wake up in this sort of muggy atmosphere is because you've got the windows sealed absolutely.
I have my heating on and the window open because I like a cold bedroom, but I want to be warm if I get up to go to the toilet in the night.
I'd be careful if I were you. There are some politicians who would have something to say about your use of electricity and gas and potentially not saving energy.
No, Sam does it all with her solar panels, so she's fine.
Oh, that's good.
They'll be even more angry when they realise I leave the bathroom light on all night just to make sure I can see to go to the toilet.
Well, the way I see it, maybe these pineapple plants are the solution to global warming. Because they sound like they do all the things we need. So actually all we need is, instead of planting trees everywhere and trying to re-wetland the wetlands or whatever, what we should do is just put pineapple trees everywhere.
That is the benefit of low energy light bulbs. You can just leave all the lights on, and you know.
I'm assuming that in this country you can't actually grow pineapples.
Yeah, you can in Tesco's.
You can in Tesco's?
Yeah, they've got a special environment.
No. So you can get a mini pineapple. So there is like a little mini pineapple plant someone bought me as a present from Tesco's before.
How'd that work
Back your
out?
snoring, didn't they?
It died, didn't
It
it?
died, yeah.
Exactly.
But that's only because I forgot to water it. Because I once got a cat. There's a bit of a boring story, but seeing as like everyone else has been boring and I haven't, and also we've been quite brief with the podcast, I'll relate this story. So when I was due to move into my house, I kept thinking the tenants weren't going to leave and something was going to go wrong because I am a bit of a worrier. And I kept driving past the house and seeing that there was this cactus still in the window. So I was saying to my friends, oh, you know, they're definitely not moving out because of this cactus and all of that. So when I moved in, my friend bought me a cactus to keep on my windowsill in perpetuity. So if the cactus is removed, then it means I'm leaving my house. So the reason this is important is because I didn't realise, I thought cactuses live in the desert, right? So they don't need much watering. So I didn't water it for like 6 months and then it died. And now I can't remove it because if I remove it, it means I'm moving. So now I've just got a dead cactus on my window.
There's levels of that story. I just can't begin. But all I will say is that is the absolute definition of cool stories, right?
I think that story deserves a podcast all of its own. It's got so much to give.
Why don't you just buy another cactus plant and put that in the window? Then you're not moving. Or why don't you stop being so superstitious?
Well, I sort of did, because what happened was I didn't want to
Did
add
that
this
die
because
as
it
well?
made me sound more crazy and also it was a bit more boring. But I won at a raffle, won a big cactus, which I thought I deliberately picked to replace the dead one, right? So I replaced it and was like, I'm going to water it this time. and watered it once every 2 weeks, and then it died again. Because apparently cactuses, even though they live in the desert with no water, have to still be watered every so often.
How often?
I don't know.
Well, then maybe the research was the first thing you should have done. Come on,
So
you two.
now I've got a bigger cactus in my
We've got Chris and Jonathan Big Brains. Do either of you know how often you should water this cactus?
It depends upon the nature of the cactus, and also it
I
depends
don't think it's a euphemism, Chris. It really is a cactus.
and also it depends upon the atmosphere, because cacti don't necessarily take a great deal of the water that they ingest from rain.
I would love you to have said cactuses then. You nearly said it. What do you think, John? Do you have any knowledge to add about the keeping of cacti?
No, not really. They are I mean,
Spiky?
the main thing to know about cacti is that they either live or they die, and that's really it. So you just pick the cacti, a range of cacti, water them however you feel like. A number of them will die, and the rest will survive, and just carry on like that.
I just feel a bit.
People talk about deserts as though deserts have no water in
They
them
do,
and no rain. And it's very unusual for that to be the case. Where you do have deserts, like the Anaconda, or parts of the Anaconda Desert in South America, where you don't have any water at all, for all intents and purposes, you'll find there are no cacti.
Ah.
Well, I do now wish I hadn't shared this story because now I look like a plant killer.
And
firstly,
also,
and
this
also
is
some
creating-
weird stalker that drives past people's houses to see if they move.
To see if they got cactuses in the window. Cactuses. I did it! Okay, guys, I think we've pretty much drawn to the end of this podcast. Anybody got some last words they'd like to say, Jonathan?
I was going to run through the
Deputy
the
Labour.
candidates for the deputy leadership of the
Oh
Labour
no, we'll do that.
They
We've
are,
done
though.
we've done the leadership, and that was boring enough.
But-
These deputies are complete also-rans.
No, I mean they're almost as glittering an array as the leadership.
Is there anything funny, particularly funny, about one of them?
No,
Right, that's it then. I'm afraid you can't do it, Sam.
actually there is.
Oh, here we go.
Angela
Of course there
Rayner.
is.
Angela Rayner
Yeah,
left secondary school, age 16, without any qualifications.
bought a chain
Sorry.
of jewellery stores.
And then Corbyn appointed Rayner to the position of Shadow Secretary of State for Education.
Oh,
Well,
well,
I think it's actually good because she can say what's wrong with the education system and why she managed to leave school with no qualifications.
Well, it's because she was up the duff at the time. It was not the case.
is this actual fact or are you just making this up? Is this fake news?
No.
Okay, well,
Well, it's so big deal. So she got pregnant and so
I'm not criticising the pregnancy. I'm
mean,
criticising
she might be well
having
placed.
no qualifications and being the secretary. Or
I must admit, I'm
shadow
with Sam on this.
secretary.
I don't like this whole, you've got to have this exact set of qualifications to do this exact job.
No, but
Because you
having
never
some
think
that
outside the
might be
box then,
useful.
do you?
Listen, I am absolutely appalling at maths, right? It's a commonly known joke between all of my friends that I'm bad at maths. I managed to get a C in GCSE maths. That tells you how good at grading people's skills GCSEs are.
They've got
But it
better
doesn't
now.
stop you from having the ambition of being...
And I got a D in drama.
The ambition of being
Back
portfolio...
in your
You should have got
You have the
that,
ambition
yeah.
for being portfolio holder for finance in Shetland District Council, we know that. And the fact that your maths isn't absolutely perfect doesn't stop that ambition.
For clarification, we're not acting in our role as a counsellor in these podcasts.
Yes, absolutely not. This is a private podcast for private views only, and also we don't normally talk about local information, but we keep slipping up, don't we? So perhaps one of these days, read us, those people who watch the podcast, let us know if you would like us to talk, perhaps for one podcast, about local issues, because we might do that. But we've always tried to stick to the kind of national stuff because we thought it was more fun and more people would connect. But let us know if you'd like to get an insight into kind of local politics in this area, which is Fenland in the east of England, and just let us know what you think.
I would like to talk about Deanna Davison. She is the Conservative MP for Bishop Auckland, and I've got a bit of a girl crush on her because I just think she's really awesome. I've been following her on Twitter, and she just seems such a normal, down-to-earth person. And she gave a maiden speech yesterday, and it was the first time that anyone used the word chuffed in Parliament. And yeah.
And how did you feel about it?
Her speech was really good, and she was basically saying she quoted Dumbledore from Harry Potter. Not
You had the
Harry Potter
opportunity
fan.
to say I felt chuffed then, but you didn't
yeah,
take
I did,
it.
yeah.
My
But she
father
was-
used to say he was chuffed.
But it was good, and she was just saying, it doesn't matter, where you're from, it's where you're going to and stuff. And I just think she's just a normal. She's the real, blue collar Tory, which she's pushing. So.
The Bishop Auckland result was one of the ones which I was most pleased about. I've been waiting 45 years for Bishop Auckland to fall to the Conservative Party. It's been threatening to do so for a very long time, and I'm delighted at this election that it, together with many other neighbouring seats like North West Durham actually went to the Conservatives. Absolutely great news for us.
Yeah, we've got them, but now we have to hold them. Anyway, guys, that pretty much brings the podcast to the end. So I hope you've enjoyed this one tonight. We have been Unapologetic, the UK podcast on politics, news and stuff from a right of centre viewpoint. And it's time to say goodbye, Jonathan.
Goodbye, Jonathan.
And Sam.
Sam.
And Chris.
Goodbye.
And I'm Steve. Talk to you soon.